You know that slice of toast or the biscuit you had this morning? Well, it's so much more than just food. It's actually the final chapter in this huge story. A story that involves ancient discoveries, imperial politics, and a massive global industrial revolution. We're going to break down exactly how baking went from this simple household chore to a high-tech science that literally shaped our world.
A lot more than you'd think. Seriously, the journey from a single grain of wheat to the bread on your plate is a story about power, about technology, and about control. And that connection, right there, is the key to understanding how baking has been fueling civilizations for thousands of years.
All right, so let's rewind. Way back, baking started super small in ancient households. We're talking simple, flat, unleavened breads, probably first popping up in the Middle East. But it didn't stay a simple craft for long. Nope. It pretty quickly became an absolutely essential tool for building empires.
I mean, just look at this progression, it's fascinating. You start with basic flatbreads. Then, bam, around 5000 BCE, the Egyptians set up the first organized bakeries and make a totally game-changing discovery. Fast forward to the 7th century BC, and the Greeks are putting laws on the books to control the price and weight of bread. That tells you how critical it had become. And the Romans? For them, conquering new lands wasn't just about glory, it was about controlling the wheat supply to feed everyone.
So that game-changing discovery by the Egyptians? It was leavening. They somehow figured out that the same wild yeast they were using to brew beer could make their bread dough rise. It must have seemed like absolute magic, but it was really the birth of food science. It transformed this heavy, dense brick of bread into something light, soft, and way easier to digest.
And this phrase, this perfectly captures the political power of baking. The Romans got it. They understood that a well-fed population is a controllable one. Bread and circuses was their strategy. Give the people free wheat, and throw some big spectacles to keep them happy and stop any riots. It proves that food security has always been a cornerstone of social stability. If an emperor couldn't provide bread, he could lose his crown, or a lot worse. For centuries, baking stayed a pretty manual craft. And then, the Industrial Revolution hit in the 19th century and everything, and I mean everything, changed. Steam power, enormous machines, and new engineering turned the local bakery into a full-blown factory.
Yeah, let's just get a picture of what manual craft really looked like. Before machines, dough was mixed by hand. But when it got too tough to knead, well, there's an account from back then that says the mixer would literally jump into the trough and tread the dough with his bare feet. Now, compare that to the first steam-powered mixers, these big barrels with rotating blades. It was a huge leap in efficiency and, let's be real, in hygiene.
The ovens got a major upgrade too. Early industrial ovens were basically just giant brick boxes fired by coal. They held heat great, but they were incredibly slow to heat up or cool down, which made controlling the temperature a total nightmare. The real breakthrough was the traveling oven, what we'd call a tunnel oven. Now the dough moved on a conveyor through different heat zones. This was the birth of continuous assembly line baking.
So here's the key takeaway. All these innovations clicked together to create a brand new system. You had high-speed mixing, machines rolling out the dough, and those traveling ovens, all of it working together to create a factory process that could churn out massive quantities of identical products day after day.
But the revolution wasn't just about the machines. You see, the very ingredients bakers were using were also being totally transformed by new tech. And this changed the final product in some really fundamental ways. Okay, take a look at this wheat grain. For most of history, milling just meant grinding the whole thing up between stones. You got a coarse, stark flour. But after 1880, the roller mill changed everything. This new machine could precisely strip away the outer bran and that oily germ in the middle, leaving behind just the white, starchy endosperm.
And the impact of this? It was massive. First off, the new roller-milled flour was way whiter, which people back then associated with purity with being high status. But the real game changer was its shelf life. See, by taking out that oily germ, the flour didn't go rancid anymore. That made it absolutely perfect for industrial-scale production and for global trade. And here's another key moment for you. 1857. Right after the Crimean War, Britain went and slashed the tax on sugar. All of a sudden, this thing that had been an expensive luxury was affordable. This one political decision just opened the floodgates for the sweet, biscuit, and candy industries, and man, did they explode in popularity.
So think about it. You've got cheap sugar, you've got white flour that lasts forever, and you've got these powerful new machines. One country was in the perfect position to take over the world's snack time, Britain. This was the perfect recipe for the rise of the industrial biscuit.
And that's really not an exaggeration. Entrepreneurs in Britain pioneered the machinery and the whole process for mass production. Biscuits that were developed there, like the Marie or the Digestive, became global staples. You can find them produced and eaten pretty much everywhere today.
So why were biscuits so wildly successful? Well, it's a simple but really powerful combination. They lasted a long time, you could eat them right out of the package, they were cheap, and, well, let's face it, people just love sugar. It was the absolute perfect convenience food for this new industrial age.
And this globalization of baking is still happening, creating these fascinating cultural hybrids. This quote is a perfect example. It points out how a French icon, the baguette, has been adopted and perfected by Vietnamese bakers down in Australia. It just shows you how baking tech and traditions travel, they adapt, and they create something totally new.
So, where does all this leave us today? Well, the story of baking is still evolving, and it's being driven by the very same forces that kickstarted the Industrial Revolution: efficiency and global demand.
Yeah, the modern baking industry is pretty much the logical conclusion of all the trends we've been talking about. It's all about massive, automated factories designed for maximum output with as little labor as possible. The goal is simple: produce consistent, affordable food for a global population. This global expansion means we're seeing these cutting-edge factories popping up in developing nations, all focused on creating affordable, convenient food. But it's not a simple copy and paste job. Experts have to constantly tweak global recipes to work with local ingredients and different conditions. And in a market this competitive, where the profit margins are paper-thin, success often comes down to one key thing: obsessively controlling waste.
So, from the simple unleavened flatbreads of antiquity all the way to the automated factories of today, baking has been right there at the center of politics, technology, and culture. It's fed armies, it's calmed down populations, and it's driven huge industrial change. It really makes you wonder, what's the next chapter in this incredible story?
Industrial Bakery Simplified.